Hello and welcome to another Parts Factory installation tutorial video. Today we're going to be replacing a fuel injector set, 6 of them in fact, on this 2002 to 2007 BA or BF Falcon. Now this particular one is obviously the straight 6. Specifically this video will pretty much only cover the straight 6 Falcon, but it can also be used for the straight 6 Ford Territory, so keep that in mind. I believe that the 6-cylinder on the FG is extremely similar. So if you have an FG Falcon, you should also be able to use this tutorial. That won't be a problem. Now, it is a bit of a complicated job, but there's nothing like too fidgety, etc. Everything's on the top of the engines. We've got to just follow it step by step. We're going to remove the air intake box and hose, the throttle body, a couple little brackets. We're then just going to undo the 2 fixing bolts that hold the fuel injector rail to the block, lift it up, and you get access to all 6 injectors. Now before we get started, I will let you know, we do have this product available on our website. We have a set of 6 Ford injectors. Specifically right now, we only stock them for the Turbo Falcons, but very soon we're going to have the regular ones. So by the time you're watching this video, we most likely have it on the site. They're starting from $183.30 for a set of 6, delivered to your door if you're somewhere in Australia, free of charge. So make sure you check it out. Alrighty guys, let's get into the tutorial. Okay, so the part we are looking to replace is this metal rail here. We're going to pull that this direction, and the injectors are under these plugs. You've got 1, 2, obviously 3, 4, 5, and 6 to the back. So obviously, in order to access this area, this pipe has to be removed, which is nice and easy. 2 10 mils here, airbox, bang, pop it off. You got this red tab here, you just pull that and literally pull that plug and just move it to the side like that. You got 4 Allen keys like that. I'm going to show you how to access that area. Plug on this end and this would move out of the way. We're then going to remove this little bracket. I think there's one at the back, and then at that point there's 1, 2, 3 I think screws that or bolts that hold that fuel injector rail to the head. First things first, you've got a few little latches. 1, 2, 3, 4, and literally this just pops off. And then at this point, you've got 2 10 mils. This one's missing, but you'd have a 10 mil there and one here. Now the heads of these screws rust out, so just make sure that you're using a fine spline socket. And this literally just lift off at this point. Now, yes, you might find that on the bottom of your air intake pipe, this happens. If yours is like that, I would highly recommend while you're in here, making sure that if it is like that, you order a new one. You have to order that entire section, buy it from a wrecking yard, $50, $60, because otherwise it's sucking in here dirty air and can blow up your engine. Right, there's just a plug here on the side of this throttle body. You literally just depress that and just pull it down. You have 4 Allen keys, obviously 1 on the top. My advice is use a long extension Torx bit, just like this. Pop the throttle body off. Right, so this fuel injection rail here is obviously what we're going for, but in order to get it out, you're gonna have to remove these metal rods. Basically, they reinforce this air intake manifold. To do that, you got 1 8 mil here. Remember, we're moving all these screws up to the top over here so you do not lose any. Another one there. Got 1 down here. Use your finger, guide it out. Up the top, this little bracket up the top. There's 1 over here. Get that plug out of the way. Remember to use your finger like that, so we can bring it out, bring it over to here. Okay, so now that we've pulled this bracket off, we can now remove the entire dipstick tube. Right, so there's now 2 10 mils on each end of the fuel injector rail. Right, before we go any further, I'm just going to remove this positive terminal here. Just like that, tuck it way out of the way and let the car sit for like a minute. Right, so I've just realized that there are 2 bolts on the ends and there are 2 more in under here. Right, so on the back of that fuel injector rail is a fixed fuel pressure hose. I think it's something to do with the fuel pressure regulator, etc., etc. But it doesn't matter. In my experience, it's better to leave the injector rail where it is. You've got it wiggling so you can get in there and we can do the injectors one at a time. Right, just before we go any further, I want to point out something. If you just have a look at where the tip of my screwdriver is, on each end of the injector should be an O-ring. You see 1, 2, 3, 4, etc., etc., etc. You want to make sure that when you pull your injection rail out, all of these O-rings came with the previous fuel injectors. You can see that each one here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The reason for that is you do not want to be putting a new injector back in on top of an old O-ring, because then it'll have double O-rings and it will not seal properly. So yeah, make sure. Right, so for this video, so that it's good for the viewers, I've decided to go ahead with this one. I've moved this bracket slightly out of the way. It's a flexible bracket, so I just moved it slightly out of the way. You can see this fuel injector here. Here's your plug. It has a circlip, a little clip here. There's one there, you can see that there, like that. And it also has this one. This one holds the injector into the fuel rail, and this one holds the plug onto the injector. So I've gone ahead and grabbed a really fine spline little tool here so that I can literally just stab it in there and pull this little clip this direction. Same thing on this side. And then I'm going to put my hand in and I'm actually going to take the clip with me. I'm going to pull this plug directly off. I'm going to move it over to the side. So we're doing this fuel injector first. You can see we've got plenty of room to get in there. Just going to leave it rolling. Yep. Okay, so now that we've done that, this is the part where you might release some fuel pressure. So I'm just, this clip here, you literally just see how I can push down on that with my fingers. You just grab with your two hands, you just push down, and there it is there. You can leave that up the top here. And at this point, guys, as you can imagine, wiggle the injector. Don't wiggle it too much, just slight wiggles, just like that. Kind of like a massage. If you lose an O-ring on the inside of your fuel injection rail, just grab a little tool like the one I've got, and you can just pull it out like that. Just stick your tool out of the way. Go ahead and stick it back on your fuel injector. Right, we got it out. It was a little bit hard to wiggle that out of the fuel injection rail, but I assure you that's the hardest part of the whole job. Once you get it out, the new one's easy to put back in. Obviously, make sure that your O-rings are on each end of the new injector, etc., etc. Jam it back into that fuel injection rail, and obviously wiggle the fuel injection rail back into the head, and that would be job complete. Right, so as I mentioned in the video, there's nothing wrong with this injector, so I am going to be reinstalling it, but I just wanted to show you guys the parts factory equivalent here. As I said, this one is for the turbo model, so you could put it in this car, but it'd have to be tuned and modified. But yeah, this is for your XR6 Turbo. We have these available on our website, including 3-year warranty and free express postage Australia-wide. So yeah, if you're interested in something like that, make sure you head on to the site. Right, so we're going to put this fuel injector back into the fuel injection rail now and reassemble everything. Hopefully you guys have gone ahead and changed each one individually, or perhaps you're waiting for me to show you how to put this back in. It is exactly the same thing. I think you realize now this is actually quite an easy job. You literally just grab the fuel injector, bring it back in, and again, it's a massage effect to get this back in. Right, so I found the best way to get that fuel injector back in was actually to put it back in the fuel rail as much as I could, and then put the fuel injector in the head, and then push the fuel injector into the fuel rail into the fuel injector. Right, so that little metal clip, the great thing about these clips is while you can't pull this plug off with the clip on, you can put the plug back on with the clip on, and that's why they're a good little design. And once that clips on, now you're ready to put the whole car back together. So once you've got all of your new fuel injectors back in and the fuel injection rail is pushed into the head nice, you can then start putting your bolts back in. Tightening it up a bit now, that's okay. And of course, the one down the very end, which will be the hardest one to get back in, using your extension hopefully you can just bring your finger down. Probably don't need to film it, you can't see in there. Just go back a bit. Right, it's now time to put the dipstick back in. Of course, it mounts just there where I put my torch. So all you do is you look through the peephole. Of course, you guys aren't going to be able to see this. Just a heads up, if you are doing that, look through this gap here, and you can see it just there. It's actually easier than I thought to spot. Literally just stab it back in. Right, so we're now going to start putting our brackets back. Find the correct bracket for each spot. I'm hoping that that one goes there like that. It's now time to tighten up. Not too tight, they're very small, so not doing too much. And then of course the front one in second. Tightening that down now once you've got your 2 bolts in. Right, so we're putting this gasket on this throttle body. If you don't have blue goo and you're in an emergency situation, first things first, find out which way the throttle body goes. So you line up the bolt holes like that. You can actually grab your throttle body bolts, the top ones, stab them through the throttle body so they hold the gasket in place, like so. Only the top ones though, don't put the bottom ones in. And then you can bring your throttle body over, dropping it into place the same way it came apart. So that'll line up the throttle body, which means the gasket will also be lined up. Of course, it's in under here. You can just line up the screws like so, pushing them into the throttle body, tightening it in. They usually go in quite easily. So we're now going to start putting our electrical plugs back on, facing sideways. There it is there, pushing that red tab back in so everything's OEM spec. You got this plug over here, don't forget this one, the car will not run. Right, it's now time to reinstall your air intake tube. This one has that dreaded issue I was telling you about, but the owners agreed that just to reinstall it. So his wish is my command. Obviously we bring the air intake tube into the area it belongs, and you literally just slip it over the top of the throttle body. Put the 10mm here, leave that like that, tightening this screw. That seems to be okay now, and of course our last little oil tube. Right, so now it's time for us to put our air box back on. It's fairly straightforward, I'm sure you guys can work it out, but if you can't, just evenly distribute the clips around the edges. 1, 2, 3, and the last one, the hard one to get to, you can kind of just reach in there and hopefully get that to lock in. Last little air intake tube here. Using a 7mm, we can tighten that back up there. All done. Wasn't too hard at all. The whole job has taken about half an hour, which is way quicker than what I previously expected. But however, I only changed 1 injector. Perhaps changing those other 5 would have added about 15 to 20 minutes onto the job. And remember, if you're buying the injectors from us at $183, then fitting it yourself, you could save up to $1,000 going down this pathway using Parts Factory to get the job done, whether that's the video or the product. Alrighty guys, if you have appreciated this video, make sure you hit the thumbs up button, or if you can, subscribe to the channel. Guys, my name's Lucas Drabs. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.